I got bad news for everybody. You have to listen to me now, so come on in from the back of the room, get around the tables. We got to get this process and this presentation going, as we like to say. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff. I'm the Secretary at the Cabinet for Economic Development. Just forget about all that because it's really not important whatsoever. I'm here to tell you I have, and I want to give to you a little background as to, and believe me, if you saw me when I was young, you would know regulatory, enforcement, compliance. I ran from every one of those things when I was little. But let me share with you, I have a love affair with the topics in this room and all the regulatory and all the compliant folks that are here. And I'm going to try to walk you through it because economic development is really all about, and if I can get that slide pulled up and get my ugly face down, it would be really good. Because I've got a philosophy about economic development. It's really very, very simple. We all do what we do to make lives better. And you know, when I was at Whirlpool, I was heavily involved with Habitat for Humanity because I do believe affordable housing is a key ingredient, a key metric for helping to take care of people. But I learned the hard way, and that is basically when someone's got a great, stable job, that house becomes a home. And that's what this is all about, is how do we work together? How do we realize regulatory, compliance, energy, you name it? If we embrace each other and work together, huge possible things will become a reality. And more importantly, along the way, not only are we helping individuals get great jobs, to become great neighbors, to create great communities, I think we all have to accept the responsibility that we share in that most important home of all, our planet and where we live. And that's why this conference is so important. That's one of the reasons why when asked, I said, absolutely. I want to come in and talk about it because it is about creating jobs. It is about creating opportunities. That's what we're here all to talk about. And I just want to tell you that our Cabinet for Economic Development, I got some of the folks working here. I see Carrie, who we work with every day with the Environment and Energy Cabinet, or the other way around. It is a collective team effort to create jobs and create economic opportunity anywhere and everywhere in Kentucky because, after all, it's about building better lives for all Kentuckians and not just a few. And I think together we can achieve that in ways that are profound. Now, first, we now have and will have going into 2023 a strategic architecture with key areas that we're working on. And you're going to see some things up here that a couple of my team members I've seen so much they say, take it down, Noel, but I believe in it very strongly. Shared responsibility is the only way to achieve shared opportunity. If we all have a vision, if we all have something we're trying to aspire to do, you have to share in those responsibilities. And I'll be the first to tell you, companies that we have incentivized to come into our great state, we define their sharing of those responsibilities if they indeed want to be successful in our state. That includes understanding we have a regulatory environment. That includes understanding that if they are working with us and bring the right information, we'll get them permitted in a very short period of time. But you have to share in that responsibility, and you need to also share in the responsibility of tapping into the programs and opportunities around workforce to give all Kentuckians that better opportunity. I believe in it so strongly. That's why I've got this slide here to show it to you and talk to you about it, because if you don't believe in it, then we can't create the things that everyone deserves, and that's exactly why we are here. Now, I've also got some things that are going to be changing a little bit at the Cabinet. One is we need to embrace this whole issue around workforce, and we've got people that are going to talk about that today. And some of you have already heard my mundane philosophy about workforce, but we got to embrace it, we got to adopt it, and we got to make it happen. Guess what, folks? I did raise a son. I did have a bunch of his buddies. I learned very quickly. A young mind, any mind, if you don't create a yearning inside of that heart, if you don't create a yearning and a desire to actually want to learn something, you're going to be a failure. Not you. I'm talking about the individual, that we have a responsibility to create that yearning. Because if you can instill in a young person how exciting it is to work in a new type of manufacturing, or to realize that going to work for one of these companies can result in six-figure income, that yearning will ultimately start to turn into some learning. And when those young people start learning, they start earning your praise, right? When they are learning even more, they start earning real money, and pretty soon they got a yearning to learn more, and pretty soon they're learning more, so they're earning more, and eventually at some point in time in their life, they get a yearning to give back. That's the workforce opportunities that we need to talk about. Those are the things from an economic development perspective we need to help move this state forward. But you got to have something to sell. And I'm very proud that under this governor, with his values, we've got $200 million that are going in to help create sites to sell products, to bring companies in. But it better not be just a piece of dirt, because the first round of $100 million is a competitive situation. That dirt better have tools and programs and people collaboratively working together. The community colleges need to be part of wherever you want to have that new industrial park. Everything about where you want to show a company needs to have the infrastructure built in, and it needs to be a visible sign of what will be done by the community to support that company, to create that shared opportunity that we all aspire to have going forward. Yes, Kentucky has been on a roll. My goodness, look at all the job numbers. It's unbelievable, $17 billion plus, 28,000 jobs plus. And look at the kind of companies that are here. Name companies that you know about. And a big reason that we've had those kinds of job growth in this past year is the governor and Larry Hayes, who's an institution, made sure we got more than our fair share of the EV side. In fact, we lead all of the states relative to the EV component of what's happening. It's part of a revolution. It's part of a transformation. And as a state that is so heavily dependent upon automotive, we better be on that cutting edge of what's happening around the EV space. And guess what, folks? We're already there. We're getting the kinds of companies that are going to supply the EV business. And guess what? On every one of them, we're able to get permitting done, not because we cut corners, but because it's a shared responsibility to do what you need to do, bring the information that you need to have, get the consultant out of the room if you have to, just communicate to get to the point that you understand what needs to be done to get the permits in place. In my previous life, I worked on a project that had one Superfund site, 64 brownfield sites, 550 acres that were empty going to ruination, and it was in an impoverished community, and we decided, let's embrace the EPA, let's embrace the Department of Energy, let's embrace all the regulatory groups that were necessary, and guess what? After buying 189 more parcels, we created mixed unit development on top of those brownfields, and we created not only jobs like this one, where we brought in a manufacturer into the neighborhood of a predominantly African-American community in which job training was where they could walk. We had to move a creek. We had to clean up a creek to make that project successful, and it was also a brownfield. Look at what Benton Harbor, Michigan looked like back in the 80s, 3 million square feet of old condemned buildings there when we found it, and we created mixed development that came in. It was because the EPA was there with us. The state regulators were there with us. We had visions of what to do from a workforce training perspective. We actually built a Hope 6 development inside of this element of what I call a transformation. And we brought new employers to come in, and we created commercial, residential, and workforce training opportunities to make sure that all residents had a chance to achieve that. That's just a really quick synopsis in a very boring way of telling you I am convinced that when you work together, you share in those responsibilities, there is nothing that's not possible. And for those of you who talk and grouse about a regulator, I say I bear to differ. These are the best, greatest friends that you can have, because guess what? The old saying about leadership, the very best leaders accept reality and deal with it. We have to protect our planet. We have to find ways of creating opportunities. And we do that by accepting those responsibilities and finding ways that we can win, win, win by being at the table with each other. And guess what, folks? David now from the Bluegrass Area Development District is going to explain how it's done at the regional level. And I'm just going to leave you with this. It can be done. It will be done. It shall be done. And thank goodness we've got the smartest people in the room, because Kentucky deserves to have a great place to call home. But we need to protect this planet along the way to get it done right. David?
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Let me just begin by saying that I have the best job in the world. And I want to tell you a little bit about myself, and I want to tell you a little bit about the area development districts, and then maybe when I'm finished, you'll agree with me that I have the best job in the world. I grew up in Berea, Kentucky, just the south of Lexington here, and enjoyed hiking the Pinnacles, fishing at Owsley Fork Reserve, canoeing the Great Big South Fork, and enjoying a lot of activities outdoors. My dad immigrated to the United States from Switzerland because of the economic opportunities that states like Kentucky have to offer. He was a machinist and a tool and die specialist for Dresser Industries in Kentucky. And although I enjoyed going out and recreating and being in the wilderness and being outside, I knew that the food that was put on our table came from the industrial job that was afforded to my dad to have. So today, I work for the area development districts. The area development districts are spread throughout the state. There's actually something similar across the entire country. There's 15 area development districts in the state of Kentucky. Tony Wilder, our state director, is here with us today. We have a state director in our office in Frankfort, and they are known as councils of government. Now, I have to be honest with you, I was selected today to speak on behalf of my compatriots, not because I'm the best-looking area development district director, or the youngest area development district director, or the smartest, but simply because I live in Lexington. So with that said, I would like to recognize that Governor Beshear, Secretary Noel, Secretary Goodman have really extended their hand to the area development districts to work with us and to utilize the capacity that we offer, which is primarily to make connections at the local level. All of our area development districts are presided by a board of directors which consists of our locally elected officials, our county judge executives, our mayors, and even citizen members that come together to get things done at the local level. These local elected officials are the ones that are in the potholes, they're in the trenches, they're fixing things on a day-to-day basis, and we roll up our sleeves and go out there with them to do the same thing. So our mission at the Area Development District is to enhance the economy of our communities through planning to maximize resources, to do projects to promote economic development, and to implement programs that improve the quality of life of the citizens in our regions. There's 3 ways that we do that to help as it relates to things with the environment. The very first is that many of our staff become certified grant administrators for the community development block grants. To do that, they have to take an environmental certification. The National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, basically states that you can't do anything at the local level or you can't execute the administration of a grant unless you've taken environmental impacts into consideration. So our staff does that in the administration of these grants by sending out scoping letters to the partner agencies such as Fish and Wildlife, the Army Corps of Engineers, the State Historic Preservation Office, NRCS, Forestry, and the Tribal Consultation. Then through those letters, those scoping letters, we get clearinghouse comments back. We take into consideration of what these departments and agencies are concerned about in order to provide offsetting or mitigating actions that we can take to ensure that these projects and these grants can be implemented without harming the environment. So once we've got the permits, then we're able to implement the project and move forward after we have received a finding of no significant impacts or after we've mitigated any of the identified problems that might exist through the environmental assessment that was conducted. The second way that the area development districts assist in the providing economic development while considering environmental impacts is through the advisory committees that we operate and run. One of those committees that we use at the Bluegrass Area Development District is the Natural Resource, Environmental Protection, and Advisory Committee. As advisory committees, we are basically taking a look at issues and bringing them to our board of directors for their concern. So we find subject matter experts within the communities, people who are passionate about environmental issues such as water, air quality, solid waste, land and soil, and then we help prioritize staff resources so that we can apply and go after those grants which are most impactful to the communities that we are serving. And the third area, which was already mentioned today, Sandy Williams mentioned that we also are contracted with the Kentucky Infrastructure Authority to administer the area water management councils for the state. That's how I initially got my start at the Bluegrass ad. I was an environmental engineer doing work for the state of Kentucky as a consultant, and I realized that there was an opportunity when we implemented Governor Patton's 2020 initiative to provide water to every resident in the state of Kentucky. And that opportunity was to come and work for a regional council to determine the most impactful ways that we can implement the funding resources that we get. So that's a little bit about the ads. You can see why I'm passionate about it and why I feel like I do have the best job that anyone could possibly hope for. And with that, now I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Kathy Walker, who's with the Kentucky Advanced Manufacturing Institute. Kathy?
It's an honor to join you today, and I'm thankful for this invitation to speak. I know you share my excitement in helping eKAMI, the Kentucky Advanced Manufacturing Institute in Paintsville, Kentucky, revive hope for the future and rebuild the economies among many Eastern Kentucky communities that it serves. You might ask, what was the motivation to start this nonprofit workforce development training program in the center of Appalachia? Following the loss of thousands of mining-related jobs and witnessing firsthand the devastation that followed for the families affected, I understood how difficult it is for a person to lose part of their identity, the part which motivated one to work hard 60 to 70 hours a week to provide for their family. And we have a video to provide some context.
The last 10 years have been devastating for Eastern Kentucky's economy. Coal mines have closed, costing thousands of good-paying jobs, robbing us of a workforce and our youth. So where has there been a light at the end of the tunnel? Where has there been hope for Eastern Kentucky? Ladies and gentlemen, meet eKAMI, Kentucky Advanced Manufacturing Institute, a high-tech workforce development training center. They're changing lives by training Eastern Kentuckians for jobs for the 21st century.
When you come through our doors, we start you off with safety and measurements. So you learn how to use precision measuring equipment. You learn all the safety aspects of everything. Then you'll go into bench work and layout projects. You'll learn to operate a manual mill. And then we go straight into CNC machining. You learn not only how to set up and operate the machine, but you learn how to make programs using code. We take you over to the lathe side where you learn how to operate CNC lathes. We go straight into our robotics portion of it, to where you learn how to set up and program robotic arms or autonomous vehicles. After you've completed the entire program, you can expect to work anywhere. We have people that work Roush Yates engines, Snap-on tools. The door's open anywhere.
I'm a 30-year coal miner. Over 30 years, I broke a wrist, a finger, and my back. We got a layoff in 2017. We got a 2-month heads up on a layoff, and I had time to make changes and make new ideas, and this place here become available to me, and I decided to make a career change and become a machinist. Right after graduation, we graduated, and myself and one other student was accepted to stay here to become the instructors that we are now. This program has been inspirational in maybe you've had problems in the past. We'll help you through that. We'll fix things up to where you don't have to go back to that again. The road to success here is eKAMI can change your life, and we've seen it happen many times.
My life definitely changed. And I'd heard about this program, and I was always interested in working with my hands. I've welded at an early age, but it just seemed like the opportunity for me. I didn't really doubt it. I kind of learned the machines and really grew to know my instructors and care about my instructors, and they did the same for me. And I think it's going to open up an entire new chapter, a new journey for me. I don't think had I not came to eKAMI, I would ever find myself in this field. I definitely feel like they've given me a second chance, doing something that I've always, wanted to do, just never really knew how. You just got to trust the process, and you got to just put one foot in front of the other every day and make that your decision to change your life. You can recover. You can do better. You do not have to stay stuck.
You kind of think that, could I really do this? I've been out of school for a while now, and then you start kind of doubting yourself. But after you get back into things, and the way the instructors are here, they'll let you paddle for a while, but they won't let you drown. They definitely will help you all that they can. And no matter if it's to come in early and work with you or stay late to work with you, they're willing to help and get your life back on track. Get yourself together. There's people out here that help you. There's people that love you, and they'll work with you and help you all that they can.
It's time the world discovers the talent and potential that the people of Eastern Kentucky have to offer. And through eKAMI, they will.
So you can see why I ask myself, how can I transform Paintsville through eKAMI into a city on a hill that will serve as a model for diversifying the economies of other coal mining areas into magnets for companies seeking exceptionally talented, motivated, and willing workers. As it turned out, eKAMI proved to be the most demanding yet meaningful professional project of my life, something stronger than myself that has already benefited so many and has the potential to benefit countless more. In just 5 years, with the technical, social, and ethical skills our students have demonstrated, eKAMI has built an exceptional brand, a brand that stands out among employers for excellence, first-class skill, and unparalleled work ethic. It is abundantly clear we are sitting on a gold mine of talent. eKAMI serves students from all Eastern Kentucky counties and is appreciative of grants from the Energy and Environment Cabinet, Kentucky Division of Abandoned Mine Lands. In addition, EKSEP and several other state agencies, including the Transportation Cabinet, have provided much-needed investments in roads, rail, air, and waterway improvements, which is critical to attracting new industry to our area. These collaborative efforts among state agencies are working to provide a welcoming natural environment to the families of future employers who locate here. I especially want to acknowledge our supporters, Secretary Rebecca Goodman, Justin Adams, Director of Division of Abandoned Mine Lands, Governor Andy Beshear and his administration, and our corporate and community sponsors for their commitment to expand eKAMI throughout Kentucky. They are strategically planting seeds to diversify the economies of other former mining communities, to provide never-before imagined jobs to the industrious, hard-working people of the area in need of new career opportunities. I'm thankful for your insight, compassion, and continued support. I'm grateful to be a part of the eKAMI story, as I see it empowering our highly motivated people to acquire sustainable skills that allow them to realize their potential, imagine a brighter future, and to serve as examples of the kinds of talents companies can hire when they locate in Eastern Kentucky. And I'm most proud of the transformational, life-changing impact eKAMI is having on the day-to-day lives of its graduates, their families, and communities. Thank you. And now I'll introduce Brad Clark with Evelyn Renewables.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Secretary Noel, for having us. It's good to be here with you today. Green goes forward. All right, good deal. So I'm originally from Ashland, Kentucky. My grandparents on my mom's side were first-generation Italian immigrants in the Beckley, West Virginia area. So you'll see throughout my conversation here today that I am slightly biased to the eastern side of this state. That's me there with the really cool glasses in that middle picture and the prosthetic fingers, October Halloween outfit there. What we're doing here today, the decisions made here today, will be felt 75 years from now, right? And I think sometimes it's good to have that long view as to why we do what we do. I want my kids to be excited about living here in Kentucky, right? I left high school in 1998. I left the state, and I came back, and I'm so thankful that I did that. We have to make this state as sticky as possible so that our young people want to live here. I'm wearing two hats today. One is as the CEO and founder of Latent Talent Accelerator, really looking at cradle-to-grave support systems for people as they journey through a life that might lead to more economic mobility. I'm also here as the Director of Workforce Solutions for Eadlin Renewables. We have trademarked Social Impact Solar, and we're trying to understand all of the community benefits that could be had using large capital investment in the renewable energy sector. Most of my examples that I use today around workforce development will live in that space. So I'm particularly interested in economic development along brownfield and greenfield sort of models, right? We have our Martin County Solar Project, which I'll talk about here in a moment, which is taking the Martiki mine in Martin County and turning that into a 1,200-acre solar development. And we're using that as an opportunity to build workforce training systems that live well beyond the 18 to 24-month installation process. Also want to flag just a few more efforts that I see going on in Central Appalachia that you may or may not be aware of. Coalfield development is based in the Huntington, West Virginia area. Whenever I was in Ashland, they're actually based in Wayne, and we used to say out Wayne, which meant middle of nowhere, right? And they recently received a Build Back Better Regional Challenge Award to the tune of about $63 million. And they've built the Act Now Coalition. If you haven't seen that work, you should check it out. There's going to be a lot of learning that takes place there. And Brandon Dennison, the leader of Coalfield Development, that team have been very, very transparent with what they're learning. And they're happy to set up any site visits for anyone that wants to see what that work looks like in action. But they're really reimagining what abandoned mine land reclamation can look like, right? They have a project that was a brownfield and is soon to be a greenfield, the High Wall project, that is turning abandoned mine lands into regenerative farming sites. I didn't know that that could happen, right? So also Rural Action in the Athens, Ohio area has taken the largest acid mine drainage site in the Eastern United States, a site that no one wanted to own or reclaim, and have turned it into a profitable venture extracting iron oxide and turning that into paint, right? That kind of creativity, I think, is the opportunity that we have right now. And I'm just flagging some of these. Also, Accelerating Appalachia was recently awarded around $20 million with the U.S. Department of Agriculture to incentivize regenerative farming across the state. And its success is measured by passing about half of that money directly to farmers in 8 states, and measuring the carbon sequestration impact of those regenerative farming practices. And that will begin here in Kentucky in 2023 and radiate out to other states. Also, Eadlin Renewables announced a partnership with the American Farmland Trust in Arcadia to look at community scale solar impact projects by looking at agrivoltaics and the opportunity to build not only medium-scale solar projects, but also what regenerative farming practices can take place there so that that's a dual income stream for a farmer and can help to address energy affordability in community-scale solar states, of which Kentucky is not one. We should do something about that. And solve for food scarcity issues, right? Food security, 2 major issues for our time. For this Martin County Solar Project, I would be remiss if I represented this as a single entity's venture. This is absolutely a collaborative project. Started with the Martin County Fiscal Court and the judge executive there. Big Sandy Community and Technical College, Rochelle Burchett with the Workforce Solutions team there is helping to build all of our onboarding training and making sure that we stack as many credentials as possible into that free training that we will provide to all of our workers. The Mountain Association is helping to not only build a $150,000 solar array that we're donating to Martin County Public Schools, but also working in concert with the Mountain Association and CAISEA, Matt, I saw you around here earlier, Matt Party Miller, to build out a renewable energy sector, because currently there isn't quite the amount of demand necessary to really support those workers long term that might emerge from residential, commercial, and utility scale solar projects. eKSEP, the ACLC, the Area Development District at Big Sandy, Martin School Board, and the Martin County School Board, and Savion Energy all have played active roles in making sure that this project is not just a successful installation, but it also has a very clear and measurable community benefit. Community benefit can be sort of on a continuum, right? It looks good community benefit all the way to actual community benefit. It could have input from the community. It could be driven by the community. So all of that's on a continuum that we're really trying to make sense of. So this workforce model, at its simplest form, is really about identifying, if we look at the bottom sort of third of this slide, is really about identifying people that are employable or could be employable with a little bit of support, ensuring that they are employed, and that as they're employed, they're developing skills and they're acquiring credentials that allow them to be more employable beyond the limited construction project of the installation. And so the Big Sandy Community and Technical College, Joe Compton, with the academic programs there, has already built out, with some of our support, a NABCEP aligned curriculum. We'll be able to provide NABCEP training. That's the national certification necessary that allows a worker to work on residential, commercial, community scale, and utility scale solar projects. And we're building out a support system with our partners that ensure that those workers, if they want to go to the next site installation, they can do that. If they want to look at construction work, they can do that. If they're interested in enrolling in an academic program at the community college, they can do that. If they want to join LIONA, Building Trades Association, IBEW, our goal is to help them find their next step while earning great wages during that job. So you can see that this is a multi-stakeholder benefit model, and we're measuring what this looks like in practice. Stay tuned. It should break ground in early 2023. And so who here is familiar with the Just Transition Framework? Anyone ever heard of that? By the show of hands, former elementary school teacher, so I like the show of hands thing. 2 out of the whole group. That's worth looking at, right? The Just Transition Framework is looking at how communities can prepare for the economic and environmental outcomes that really help them diversify their economies. Whenever I built these slides, they looked way better than that. I apologize for the formatting wonkiness. You can't win them all. I'll also say here that one thing we're really interested in as we've engaged with the local community in Martin County and in 18 other communities around the United States is that those individuals that we're hiring, and for the Martin County project, we've built into the agreement that we'll have preferential hiring practices in Martin County, all the ring counties, that includes Mingo County, West Virginia, across eastern Kentucky, across southern West Virginia, and then if we can't find the workers, then it would open up, right, to the broader region. But a lot of our workers, we're assuming that those workers will come from the community in which we're building this project. And if that's true, those folks might have an opportunity to create a small business as a result of this time together. Entrepreneurs create 80% of all new net jobs. So this, in addition to small business development, in addition to having large employers come into the region, can create a much more diverse economy. And the last thing I'll leave you with is that what we want to do is identify those people that are out doing the work and create a doerocracy, right? The people that work in between the meetings. And there's a lot of opportunity here for people to be creative And for people to solve problems that they see in their communities, we want to equip them to do that. And I would strongly encourage those of you in the audience that are thinking about starting a business to do so, and those of you that might be able to create opportunities for others to create a business, do so, and have them fall in love with the problems and not the solutions. Thanks for your time. I'd also like to introduce Jordan Solomon, the chairman of the BD Zone Ozone Initiative. Thanks.
Thanks, Brad. Thank you all. I really appreciate your being here, but I'm where would I start? Lane. I'm going to start with Lane. You heard Lane talk about catalyzing, using public investment to catalyze much larger amounts of private investment, and by doing so, create jobs and catalyze the build-out of renewable energy infrastructure across the country. But I need to take your temperature first, because just by a show of hands, if I say biomass, how many of you know what I'm talking about? Put up your hands. Oh, thank God. Okay. If I say the connection between biomass and biofuels, you know what I'm talking about? More or less? Use a refresh. Okay. How many just need a cup of coffee? So a few weeks ago, a month ago, I was in Tennessee, and I was speaking at a conference much like this, and the fellow that followed me was Mike Fulton, and y'all may not know Mike, but Mike works for FedEx, and he's in charge of buying all the, we call it SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuel, that FedEx needs to buy to power their fleets. Now, FedEx operates a heck of a fleet, right? It's the size of Southwest Airlines, not just a few jets. So Mike needs to buy a lot of biojet or SAF fuel. And you make SAF from wood, or you make it from anything, actually. In fact, by the way, if you fly a jet out of O'Hare, if you fly a jet today out of Reagan, if you fly a jet anywhere, any of the major airports across the country, did you know that 3% of the fuel that's going into your jet is SAF? It's made from wood. And it's identical on a molecule-by-molecule basis with fossil fuel jet. The engine that can't tell the difference. You could fly it, and United Airlines has, with 100% SAF, jet fuel made from wood. And again, United Airlines has. So what did he say? He said, Mike said something that I really found memorable. And what he said is, he said, if the production of SAF today is the size of a walnut, the demand is the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. And it's instructive, right? Because it shows how much we need to scale this industry. But my point is, bioenergy is big. It's a big opportunity. And when you see what just Mike needs to buy for FedEx, and you add all the other airlines, and I'm only talking about the airline industry. I'm not talking about heavy truck, which also needs biofuel. I'm not talking about marine. I'm not talking about rail. I mean, electricity is important and hydrogen is important, but what I'm here to talk to you about is the ability of bioenergy to not only be part of the decarbonization solution. I mean, hey, there's no extension cord long enough to fly a jet from here to New York City, right? So you need biofuel to do it. It's part of the solution, is my point. And the opportunity is really enormous. And I want to start by really emphasizing that to you. And before I really get into this, and I'll go quite fast after this, y'all may remember when we built out the ethanol facilities in this country, right? Remember the American farmer was almost dead. Corn was $2.50 a bushel, right? American farmer was starving, right? Today, a third of the corn in the country goes into cars. And one may argue whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but the price per bushel of corn went up to about $6.50. We even went up to $8 a bushel. Now it's back down again, but the American farmer was saved. Now, why was the American farmer saved? The American farmer was saved because the federal government created market pull for ethanol. Said, you make it, we're going to buy it. 60 million gallons. Remember that? But two other things happened at the same time. And what happened is the market realized that there was very little technology risk in making ethanol from corn, because we've been doing it in the stills up in the mountains here since, well, that's not that hard. So we have very low technology risk, and we have very low feedstock risk, because we know American farmers can grow corn, right? They can grow the hell out of corn. So we have low feedstock risk, we have low technology risk, and we have low market risk. And my point is, when those three things come together, amazing things happen, and they happen very quickly. And so how many ethanol facilities did we get built out in this country in 4 years? Almost 200 of them. So here's my point. There's a massive wave coming in terms of bioenergy, biofuels, renewable natural gases, because we got the feedstock. The technology's just become mature, and we have the market pull. So I'm going to talk to you about getting your communities ready to benefit from that wave. Because remember, like an ethanol happened in 4 years. So if you're not ready, it's going to pass by. You got to be ready. The communities have to be ready. And so this is one. It's not the only solution. There's many. But I'm going to talk to you about bioeconomy development opportunity zone ratings. We call them BDO zone ratings. And what they do is they enable regions to leverage their local biomass assets to attract new bio-based plants, new plants that make biofuels, renewable natural gas, biochemicals. And what they are, they're rating, they're qualified assessment of a region, a particular region, with respect to their infrastructure attributes, but most importantly, their biomass feedstock attributes, because that's what the project developers around the world care about. They care about a lot of feedstock and low feedstock risk. So what do these things do? They pre-vet, they quantify key regional biomass and feedstock. We call them success characteristics. And then they connect those zones with hundreds of project developers around the world that want to build plants in A and AA rated BDO zones. We link those zones, those economic developers, usually poor, underserved communities, with $1 billion of private capital, not government capital, private capital, from Goldman Sachs, from Citibank, from Live Oak Bank, and about 15 others. And that's how you get new plants built in underserved communities. You empower them to attract them. Look, the market's not magic. It doesn't react to signals that it doesn't get. Project developers aren't going to magically come to an ADD in Kentucky and say, hey, we'd like to build a... Well, no, they can't. They're not magicians. They need clear, unequivocal signals that that particular area is suited to the kind of biomass they want, the availability they need it, the cost, and hey, it's better have some infrastructure attributes to support an operating plant. That's what a BDO zone rating does. It pre-vets for exactly that. So they pre-vet for, we call them the 3 pillars: feedstock surplus, good supply chains, sound infrastructure. If they score high enough, they get an A or they get a AA rating. They're recognized. Lane's from the DOE. This uses DOE funded, supported standards. They're called the standards for biomass supply chain risk. You can bore yourself to death. I know, I helped write them. With 160 pages of standards, but they were supported by the US DOE, a fair bit of money, but most importantly, they were supported by a 65-member, $60 billion capital markets community made up of some of the capital markets I mentioned to you before, Goldman Sachs and Citibank and others that you would recognize. This is what they look like. They look like a credit rating, right? Because they're designed to speak to the capital markets. This is one for Barnwell County, South Carolina. It was A-rated not that long ago it just got upgraded to 600,000 bone-dry tons a year of woody biomass. 4 days later, they're in deep discussions with a SAF plant to put $1 billion SAF plant in Barnwell County to use 600,000 tons to make jet fuel. It's a lovely thing. That's what these things do. And by the way, if you remember absolutely nothing about what I say, I recognize I'm batting cleanup here a little bit. Recognize this, or remember this. this is just an economic development tool that makes the phones ring. And I'm not an economic developer like many of you here, but I can tell you one thing that I know about economic development without a shadow of a doubt. If the phones ain't ringing, you ain't got no economic development. That's for sure. So we need to enable our underserved communities to credibly raise the flag on themselves as some of what they are, which was some of the best places in the world for the next bio-based plant. This is the impact of just one in a little town none of you have ever heard of, called the city of Melville. We got a 10 times increase in real calls from real developers. Now one's bought a little property, going to put up a plant to make wheat straw into food containers. Great, it's going to employ 35 people. Great for a little town, 5,000 people. Here's the BDO Zone Investment Coalition. I said there was $1 billion behind these communities. On April 22nd last year, $1 billion was announced. You can Google BDO Zone Investment Coalition, you'll see. Look, this is how we do what Lane said. How do we use public money to catalyze much larger amounts of private money to build the plants that are going to hire the people that are going to work? You'll see this, and if you look at the bottom left of your screen, you can click on that. It's worthwhile seeing. We had a BDO Zone Summit not too long ago, and if you look at these fellows on the top left of the screen, that's Justin from Goldman Sachs, that's David from Citibank. You can hear them talk about why they carved out $1 billion for plants built in BDO zones. And I'm going to gloss over this because I think I'm at the rest, but at the end of the time. But these things really supercharge economic development. It's very hard for an underserved community to get the word out. And after these communities are rated, they're connected. They're rated, they're connected. And they're connected with hundreds of bio-based project developers that want to build plants today, right now, in A or AA rated BDO zones. Impact on Kentucky, I'm going to close with this. You have 5 million tons of hardwood. It's underutilized in the state. You said we need something to sell. Well, you got 5 million tons of something to sell. It's incredibly valuable, but again, you can't sell it if it's not signaled properly, right? Where exactly is it? I mean, it's not everywhere. Not every community can access that hardwood, but there are at least 15 different sites around Kentucky with over 300,000 bone-dry tons a year of hardwood, and many with MSW, municipal solid waste, and food waste, etc. Here's the impact we believe that just 10 to 15 BDO zones can have on Kentucky, and you can see, I'm not going to go over there, but it's move the needle type of stuff. I would like to say that we're currently in collaborative discussions with your great Kenya Stump through the State Energy Office to do just that and start in Kentucky with 3 BDO zones. There are about 13 around the country right now, but 3 in Kentucky would make Kentucky the absolute leader in this, call it capacity building. I call it preparing the ground for the wave. So when the wave comes, some of that wave lands here in Kentucky. So thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
So a couple questions. For the Cabinet for Economic Development, what are you all doing to build capacity in childcare and pre-K programs?
I can always move into shared responsibility leads to shared opportunity. It's a very important question, but I think the real question is, the only role that the Cabinet can play initially is to use incentives, get involved in BDOs, and help bring companies in who also realize that being part of the solution means being part of the community to figure out what needs to be done for child care and for other issues that are out there in the communities. I'm not so sure that our Cabinet is the one responsible for child care, so we can stimulate bringing more people in. But I think I can also help enlighten and try to get people to think out of the box of where those opportunities could be. At Whirlpool, we did a child care facility after a lot of years of studying it, and I can give you an awful lot of the pitfalls and an awful lot of the challenges that go with it. The real solution is somewhere in between solely private and solely public. There's something in between that will help make those things work, and I think we can amplify the need and bring companies in who want to look at investing in it, and then help define the responsibility of government to be a piece of the community, private sector, and public sector solutions that can come about.
Thank you, Secretary. For Brad, why aren't we seeing more solar development on reclaimed strip mines, and what are the challenges?
If you're looking at utility scale solar projects, the permitting process is very, very long. I think the average in the United States is 7 years, right? And I think that the Inflation Reduction Act will help with some of the permitting issues that exist within the sort of larger energy grid operators. But, you see, I think that there are 12 states currently that have community scale solar legislation in place. And I think another almost dozen considering community scale solar legislation. That does tend to ease the permitting process, and it takes a lot less time to build a 25 to 40 acre installation than it does a 1,000 acre installation. And so you can stand those up pretty quick, and those can sometimes increase the visibility of solar and ensure that the workforce within the renewable energy sector has consistent gig work to do. So I think it's a complicated response, but I think a lot of it has to do with permitting and having legislation in place that really allows for solar to proliferate.
And for the group, and I think starting with Ms. Walker, we'll start with you, ma'am. What are the challenges we face in providing qualified workers for these higher tech jobs?
Lack of training for today's jobs. What we've discovered is a lot of the training that goes on is for jobs of the past, and it's incumbent upon all of us to look to the future and start training for smart manufacturing and the jobs of today. There's a lot of inherent challenges. Technology is a little bit frightening to a lot of people if you're not out of that patch, but we've demonstrated with 30-year coal miners, one who you saw in the video. He was a 30-year underground coal miner, and walking into our facility is quite, it's intimidating, but he is rocking it right now. And it just, you eat the elephant one bite at a time, but it's going to take everybody in a collaborative effort among the private and public sectors to accomplish this.
And Brad, I know you talked about workforce as well. Is there anything maybe you could add to that? We know with these big solar projects, there's immediate jobs, but long term, what do you think are some of the challenges to continue to build the workforce?
I think that there has to be a consistent demand, right? Clearly. But, we're really looking at how can we ensure that every worker on our site has an OSHA 30 training that is transferable to any sector in the area. What construction credentials could be available? Could their job embedded work experiences allow them to get, a non-registered apprenticeship? And, some of those exportable credentials, and credentials alone aren't the only solution. But we're really focusing on what can we ensure that the workers, in addition to earning $25 to $35 an hour for their work, are able to take with them beyond the project. And then, I'm becoming a firm believer that small business development and wraparound support for those workers that might be able to fill some of the demand, especially in Eastern Kentucky, for construction projects, building, trades. I think that there's something there around small business development. It's just really figuring out what that looks like at scale.
All right, and for Mr. Solomon, what measures do you take to sustainably harvest biomass without negatively affecting wildlife habitat and or reduce our native hardwood forest?
That's a great question. First of all, we don't harvest. Remember, we run a rating initiative, which is essentially like running a rating agency. But your question is still a really important one. When you're using hardwood or any kind of biomass to make a renewable chemical or a biogas or any kind of clean energy, sustainability is important. And these are absolutely vital concerns. I can give you a few examples as to how this is being addressed. If you're making a biofuel, for example, I talked a little bit about SAF. You cannot make SAF profitably, you can't make it at all, if you don't get what's called a RIN, Renewable Identification Number. You can't get a RIN unless you show the provenance of the biomass. And by that I mean you have to show that it's been harvested in a certain way, you have to show that it's been replanted properly and sustainable, and a whole bunch of other things. You don't show it, you don't get it. You don't get it, you can't build your plant, meaning you can't afford to raise the money. You can't operate a plant profitably without those kind of RINs. And there's lots of press that says, hey, they're taking down old growth forests to put into jet engines. This is a myth. It doesn't happen because functionally it can't happen. It can't happen. All that being said, there is clear cutting, it's true. There is unsustainable uses of biomass, it's an issue. The government that drives this industry and states which support these industries put clear controls on these things, and while there is some cheating around the margins, it is true. By and large, I think that these biomasses, these feedstocks are sustainably harvested and sustainably used.
So one follow-up to that, can other like invasive species, or are there other types besides just your traditional hardwood be used for this biomass process?
Oh my Lord, yes. Any kind of hardwoods or softwoods or food waste or cow manures or swine manures. You know, the lagoons overflow every year in South Carolina and other places. And food waste and municipal solid waste. There's a great company called eKAMI that is making fuels, ground-based transportation fuels, and they're making them in Georgia out of municipal solid waste, your garbage. So there's many, many types of biomass, and almost all of it is usable in some way or another. I mean, once you reduce this stuff to its component sugars, you can really reconstitute it into anything, into high-value chemicals to make plastics and high-value fuels and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, 10 years ago, it wasn't economically possible. You couldn't do it profitably. What's changed in the last 5 years is now you can.
Thank you guys very much. That's going to conclude this session. So another round of applause for our speakers, please.